The rain was hammering against the glass of Jerry's Diner, blurring the neon sign outside. It was a Tuesday night, the slowest shift of the week, and my feet were throbbing in a way that told me I'd been standing for 8 hours straight. I checked the clock on the wall. 8:45 p.m. 15 minutes until closing. I leaned against the counter, counting the tips in my apron pocket. It wasn't much. Maybe $30. My mind immediately went to the pile of bills on my kitchen counter at home. My daughter, Maya, needed new shoes for school, and the electric bill was already pink, meaning it was overdue. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, the panic that I lived with every single day. I was 28 years old, working double shifts, and still drowning. Then, the bell above the door chimed. I sighed internally. I just wanted to go home and soak my feet. I looked up to see an older man shaking off a dripping wet gray raincoat. He looked rough. His hair was messy, his face was unshaven, and his shoes were scuffed and muddy. He looked like he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. He walked slowly to the booth in the back corner, away from the windows. I grabbed a menu and a pot of coffee and walked over. I put on my customer service smile, though I felt like crying from exhaustion. "Just coffee, please," he said. His voice was raspy, quiet. He didn't even look at the menu. "Coming right up," I said softly. When I came back to pour the coffee, I noticed he was trembling. Not from the cold, but from something else. On the table, he had placed a small, framed photograph. It was a picture of a woman with bright eyes and a smile that lit up the grainy photo. He was staring at it, and a single tear rolled down his cheek, getting lost in his gray stubble. I stopped. The rush to close the store faded away. Suddenly, he wasn't just a customer keeping me late. He was a human being in pain. I remembered my own father sitting like that after my mom passed. I knew that look. It was the look of absolute loneliness. "She's beautiful," I said gently. The man looked up, startled, as if he had forgotten I was there. He looked at the photo, then back at me. "Today would have been our 50th anniversary," he whispered. "It's the first one I've spent without her." My heart broke. I looked at this man, sitting in a cheap diner on a rainy Tuesday, mourning the love of his life. "I'm so sorry," I said. And I meant it. I walked back to the kitchen. I looked at the pie case. There was one slice of cherry pie left, the diner's specialty. It cost $4.50. I touched the tips in my pocket. I really needed every dollar. But I looked back at the man, his shoulders hunched over that coffee cup. I took the pie out. I warmed it up. I found a single birthday candle in the drawer we used for kids' parties. I lit it, put it in the pie, and walked back to his table. I set it down in front of him. "For her," I said. "And for you. Happy anniversary." The man stared at the flickering candle. He looked up at me with wide, watery eyes. I didn't order this. I can't pay for it. I only have enough for the coffee." "It's on me," I said, smiling for real this time. "Don't worry about it." He didn't say anything for a long time. He just looked at me, really looked at me, as if trying to memorize my face. Then he took a shaky breath and blew out the candle. He ate the pie slowly, savoring every bite. We talked for a bit. He told me his name was Arthur. He told me about how his wife loved dancing. For 20 minutes, I wasn't a waitress and he wasn't a customer. We were just two people keeping the darkness at bay. When he left, the rain had stopped. I cleaned his table. Under his coffee cup, he had left a $5 bill. A good tip on a $2 coffee. I tucked it into my pocket, locked the doors, and went home to hug my daughter. I didn't think much about it after that. The struggle continued. 2 weeks later, my car broke down. The mechanic said it would cost $600 to fix. I didn't have it. I sat on the curb outside the garage and cried. I didn't know how I was going to get to work. I felt like giving up. The next day, I took the bus to the diner, arriving late and soaked from a sudden shower. My manager, typically a grumpy guy named Dave, was waiting by the door. He looked pale. "Sarah," he said, "there are some people here to see you." My stomach dropped. Was I being sued? Was it debt collectors? I walked into the dining area. Sitting at booth 4, the same booth, were two men in expensive, sharp suits. But sitting between them was Arthur. He looked different. He was clean-shaven, wearing a crisp button-down shirt and a jacket that looked like it cost more than my car. But he had the same kind eyes. "Arthur," I breathed. He stood up and smiled. "Hello, Sarah." "I don't understand," I said, wiping my wet hair from my face. "My name is Arthur William Sterling," he said. I gasped. Everyone knew that name. He was the owner of Sterling Industries, one of the biggest real estate developers in the state. He was a billionaire. "2 weeks ago," Arthur said, his voice steady and strong, "I wanted to give up. Losing my wife broke me. I walked out of my house dressed in my gardening clothes, leaving my wallet and my life behind. I just walked. I wanted to see if anyone would see me. Just me, the old man, not the billionaire. I felt invisible. Until I met you." He stepped closer. "You didn't know who I was. You didn't want anything from me. You saw an old man in pain, and you spent your own hard-earned money to give me a moment of joy. You gave me a piece of pie, but you really gave me hope." He nodded to one of the men in suits, who handed me a thick envelope. "I did some checking," Arthur said. "I know things have been hard for you." I opened the envelope. Inside was a check. I looked at the numbers, and the room spun. It was for $50,000. "This is for your debts," he said. "For the car. For Maya." I started to shake. "I can't take this," I cried. "It was just a slice of pie." "It was a simple act," Arthur corrected me gently. "But kindness is never small. You reminded me that there are good people in this world. You saved me that night, Sarah." He wasn't done. "Also," he pointed to the window, "Sterling Industries has a charitable foundation. We need someone who understands real people to help run our community outreach program. It comes with a salary, benefits, and college tuition for your daughter. The job is yours if you want it." Tears streamed down my face, hot and fast. I looked at the check, then at Arthur, then at the diner around me. In a matter of minutes, the crushing weight I had carried for years was gone. "Thank you," I sobbed. "Thank you." "No," Arthur said, taking my hand in his warm, dry grip. "Thank you for the pie. That rainy Tuesday night, I thought I had just served a customer. I didn't know I was serving an angel in a gray raincoat." Everything changed that day, not just my bank account, but my heart. I learned that no matter how little you have, you always have enough to be kind. And sometimes, that's the most valuable thing in the world.